Now to a very interesting case. Darren was telling me he makes furniture for a living, and he was renting a factory that he shared with another business. They're both in the same line of work. They've known each other for about 20 years. 20 years which, pre-coronavirus, Darren says, have been very good.
It's worked fine up until this £10,000 COVID grant from the government was offered to all small businesses. So on the website for the government, it said that you don't need to contact us. We will contact you. And then underneath that, it said one grant per premises. So after about 6 weeks of me not hearing anything from the local council, I got in touch with them, and it turns out that they'd paid the cheque to my friend, who hadn't told me and refused to share half of it with me, even though we paid half of the rent, the building insurance, the night security, and the rates. And he just blatantly said, no, I'm not giving it to you. I'll get in touch with the council and get your own. So I've been in touch with the council, and the council said, no, we've done all we need to do. We've paid out the 10,000 to that premises, and they're not willing to help me anymore.
Some friend.
So I've upgraded into an ex-friend now.
Yes, well, what has this former friend had to say to me? I went off to have a word with him. He was absolutely adamant that he's done nothing wrong. He said, look, the cheque arrived. It was addressed to me. It was not addressed to Darren. The cheque was made payable to me. It was not made payable to Darren. Therefore, I have cashed a cheque that was made payable to me from the council, and I don't see why I should have to give Darren half of that money. It's my money. It wasn't Darren's money. And if Darren feels that the council should have sent him his own money, he needs to complain to the council. Well, I went to speak to the council. The council came back with a pretty long response. But in effect, they said that they were trying to manage £29 million worth of money that they were sent by the government to help 2,500 businesses in the area. And they were handing that money out in quite a rapid way. And they recognised that as a result of trying to do all of this under so much pressure to help businesses, they did indeed send the cheque without putting Darren's name on it. However, they say in the body of the letter that accompanied the cheque, it made it clear that this was for both businesses that were based at that address, and therefore the council say that it's down to Darren's friend to give Darren half of the money. Well, we know that Darren's friend is not prepared to do that, so what can he do? Darren's back on the JVS show now. Hello, Darren.
Hello, hello, Jonathan. Good morning.
It just seems to me so unfair, and I can't believe your friend is dealing with this in this kind of way. It's not the way that I could ever treat a friend, but there we go. Different people have different attitudes. So who can you take legal action against if push comes to shove? Would it be the council, which in this case is Epping Forest District Council, or would it be your former friend? Well, I knew the man to be able to help us with this is Nick Freeman, the lawyer known as Mr. Loophole. He's on the other line now. Morning to you, Nick.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So who needs friends like this, eh?
Well, it's not a great friend. But we spoke about this yesterday, and I've thought very carefully about it. And I have some sympathy with Epping Council because obviously they were trying to dispense the money as quickly as possible and as expeditiously as possible. But they do owe a duty of care to Darren. And unfortunately, from their perspective, they have been negligent in what they have done. There are two businesses trading at this one premise, and they have a duty to ensure that the cheque for £5,000 to each proprietor is sent out. And insofar as they haven't done that, they owe Darren £5,000. So it falls short. What they owe him a duty of care. They've basically said, look, we've been negligent because we were under pressure. And that's why I have some sympathy with them. It's a mistake that is understandable, but nevertheless, it is a mistake which they are legally liable for in a court of law. Now, I don't know when Darren's friend, when he received the cheque, whether he knew at the time he cashed it, whether he was doing something dishonest. Did he have an intention at that stage not to share the spoils, as it were, or was it something that he realised subsequently? And the reason I say that is because he may be guilty of theft. If he knew when he received those monies from the council that they were in fact designed for two people, and he decided to appropriate them dishonestly for himself, that is theft. It's a dishonest appropriation with a permanent intention to deprive. And so what I suggest Darren does is he contacts the council by phone and initially and say, look, I know he's already done this, and say, look, I've now taken some legal advice, and you do owe me a duty of care, and it's for you to ensure that I have my £5,000 check. The fact that you made a mistake, it's not my problem. I'm afraid it's your problem, and you need to resolve it. And I think their legal department would actually, upon reflection, think, yes, actually, we've got it wrong. What they need to do is to give Darren a cheque for £5,000 in his name, and they need to recover the excess £5,000 to Darren's ex-friend. I would also, if I was Darren, I would contact the police and ask them to investigate it, because if my hunch is right and Darren's friend knew, his ex-friend knew at the time he cashed the cheque that it was designed for both and he was going to keep it, and that would seem to be enforced by the fact that he is steadfastly refusing to hand it back. He could be guilty of theft. I'm not saying he would be, but it certainly warrants a police investigation. And so that there are basically two courses of action, but the one that's going to produce the £5,000 is, I'm afraid, Darren, contacting the council and, if necessary, sending them a formal letter and giving them the opportunity to pay and threatening them with proceedings in the small claims court if they don't hand over the money that was always intended for you. It's government money. It's for you. It's your money. You have a legal entitlement to it. Had the council done the job properly, if as a lawyer I rush my advice and I get it wrong, then I have to stand by it. And so does the council. They owe a duty of care to you, and I'm afraid they've departed from that duty of care. So that is the course that you need to adopt, Darren.
Thank you very much for that advice.
It's excellent advice. The one thing I wanted to just chuck in terms of when you were talking about the former friend potentially having been aware of the fact that the money should have gone to Darren. One thing that may well be important to bring up in that is that the cheque itself was made payable to the friend's business. It says, the payee is the friend's business, and then it has the and sign. Yeah, but unfortunately,
that would support the fact that he should know that it was intended for somebody else. But from a civil perspective, he's legally entitled to pay that into his account, because it's what used to be a shows in action. It's a thing in action. He's lawfully paid that into his account because it was made payable to him. The council have made a mistake. The council will recover the excess, so he should recover the £5,000 without too much difficulty. But why should Darren have to wait for that? He should be entitled to his £5,000 straight away, and that should come out of the council's coffers, I'm afraid. And they then would need to sue Darren's ex-friend. I mean, why should Darren have to sue his ex-friend because of the council's mistake? There's no legal basis for that. It's the council's mess. They've got it wrong, and it's probably the case. It could well be the case. Let's put it no higher than that Darren's ex-friend knew what he was doing was wrong. But that will be a criminal matter, and it will be a civil matter in relation to the council and his ex-friend, but not in relation to Darren and his ex-friend.
I see. So the first port of action really is for him to go back to Epping Forest District Council to explain that he's now sought some legal advice, and they are the ones responsible. So how would they like to resolve this issue? Would they like to just get a cheque for £5,000 sent out to him? Alternatively, will he be left with no alternative but to pursue them through the small claims court? Is that the first thing he should do?
That's absolutely what he should do. And then he sends a letter. He'll know very quickly what their course of action is. They'll obviously want to think about it, speak to their legal department. Hopefully that will come up trumps. If it doesn't, it's a letter before action, and then he starts proceedings in the small claims court. I would at the same time report the matter to the police. I mean, it's Darren's ex-friend. The potential criminal proceedings there of either fraud or theft, they certainly warrant investigation. And there's no downside from Darren in pursuing both, if you like, as a pincer movement. I suppose what Darren wants, he might want justice. He might be very cheesed off with his ex-friend and wants his ex-friend sorting out through the legal process. But he also wants his £5,000 as a matter of urgency, I imagine. So, the first thing is to speak to the council straight away this afternoon. I've got legal advice. You owe me a duty of care. You're in breach of it. can I have my money now, please? You need to sue Darren. It's not Darren's ex-friend. It's not for me to do that. And I'd give them a very short time to come up with an answer. And if they don't do that, you write to them. Then you start small claims proceedings.
Brilliant. Is that all clear, Darren?
That is clear. Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah.
It's a pleasure, Darren. Good.
Fantastic. Thank you, as always, Nick, very much for your help. And we will we'll keep you posted of how things go. Thank you very much indeed. There's Nick Freeman, the lawyer, otherwise known as Mr. Loophole. Darren,